Hi, welcome back to my channel. Doing great? Good. Glad to see you again. So, the past few years have not been good to Marvel, the MCU to be exact. And the latest example of the MCU's problems is the Marvels, which had the lowest box office opening in MCU history, making it lower than 2008's Incredible Hulk's box office opening. It's no surprise, however, if you think about it. After Endgame, Marvel decided to push out more products that turned out to be awful most of the time, and people started to notice. Other than one, maybe two exceptions, Marvel has been trash. The MCU is in a deep hole that I don't know if it can dig itself out of. But with every once big and glorious brands comes its diehard fans. These people will be the last defenders come time, eating up the slop that gets pumped out. We will be covering one individual who will not only defend Marvel, but will also go after others for criticism of said brand. So strap in, ladies and gentlemen, for we're going to embark on one of the biggest MCU defenders out there. I'm going to subject you to some chaos. Organized chaos, that is. So Organized Chaos is a YouTuber who seems to go after any and all criticisms of the MCU. His favorite targets are Nerdrotic, Eric July, and Critical Drinker, which is who Chaos is covering in today's video. So let's give it a chance. After all, I actually did have some issues with Critical's new video. Not that it was bad or anything, but rather I wish he did things differently. So let's see if those points that I brought up are in this video. So let's begin.
So like I said, I haven't actually seen the Marvels yet. I'm not seeing it till this weekend. But let's go ahead and look at some chud takes on it. Oh,
I hope you get used to that word real soon because he uses it a lot.
that's right. Philip's bringing up a good point. Like his followers are intense. I mean, lots of these guys, they have almost the same follower base, and it's like I want to like shake them out of this because we talked about a little bit with Mark Hughes yesterday. Like, frankly, like these guys are like selling stuff to
Today, Junior?
young adults, young men who, don't have all of life figured out. And of course they don't have all of life figured out. You're a young man.
So already within 30 seconds of the actual video, past the headliners and stuff, I can already see one of two problems with Organized Chaos. One, he wants to get philosophical on something that is not really big of a deal.
I didn't have all of life figured out. And then they're essentially saying, oh, the problem isn't you. It's other people. And it's like, well, you need to understand the problem. It's not so much that the problem is or isn't you. It's that you're still figuring stuff out and being told that, oh, you don't have to figure stuff out. It's just other people who are wrong. It's just other people who are fucking with you. It's just other people who are keeping you down.
People didn't like a show or a movie but didn't fully know why though. Or if they did know why, they felt alone with their opinion. That's until people like Critical Drinker gave out their opinions with reference to past movies and TV and why it was not as good as the older stuff. All of a sudden, these people did not feel so alone with their opinion.
5 hours ago, Critical Drinker. 5 hours ago and 500,000 views. God, he's a fucking monster. Okay.
Number 2. It's almost like he's jealous that Drinker even has a big fan base to begin with, and he assumes that they're all young men. Sure, some of them are, but I think there is a percentage that is old people, and maybe even women.
It's not helpful. It's not good. And then people like Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic come in and monetize those people, make them think that, oh, the world is against them. And they do, like, because they're able to go from this media angle, they're able to kind of coax people into these alt-right pipelines.
Here we go.
So pretty soon they're going into shit like Daily Wire, and then pretty soon they're members of the Proud Boys. It's all this sinister pipeline shit.
Look, with people like Critical Drinker and the EFAP community, they actually pulled me away from the alt-right, not towards it. I legit thought the only people who saw how horrible entertainment was were the extreme right-wingers. But because I discovered Drinker, I also discovered there were people who actually gave in-depth reasons to why something was terrible, and not the basic call everything woke stuff. I even assume that's all Nerdrotic and even Geeks and Gamers did. But once I actually listened to them talk to each other, I quickly found out they actually do have detailed criticisms of these shows and movies, and it wasn't just anti-woke. So this is a pretty rocky start here, Mr. Chaos.
This movie is officially a flop. In fact, calling The Marvels a flop is a bit like saying that Movie Bob has some questionable opinions about the human race.
What was that take?
No, don't defend Movie Bob.
Sure, it's fun to think about, say, these people and literally all their viewers collapsing into coughing fits in the streets, but might also happen to the 20 to 25% of the country that doesn't deserve to be in pain.
No, don't defend his tweets.
So, I mean, this is...
Chaos, he literally said the only reason he didn't want people who opposed the new vaccine and mask wearing to die because his group would die. Otherwise, he'd be fine with people to die on the other side.
Okay, so I don't even know full context for this.
You don't know the full context? Dude, the tweet is right there. That's the context. What context would be okay for you to say this? I legitimately don't know. I don't even agree with people who say if you take the vaccine, you should die. So why should this be okay?
Okay. So essentially he's saying, hey, the virus is big, it's going to spread out, but then I guess it's just his way of saying he doesn't love everybody. And I kind of get that.
Really? That's your take? Well, if that's the case, Hitler didn't like 6 million people since we're downplaying the context. How do you defend people wanting people to die just because you disagree with them? That's literally fascism.
The movie recorded an embarrassing $47 million on its opening domestic weekend, by far the worst performance out of any Marvel movie ever.
Not by far. Not by far at all. Oh, let me bring this up real fast.
So he's bringing up the fact that The Incredible Hulk actually had a higher box office opening, and the cope is massive, even putting words into Drinker's mouth.
Damn man, even The Incredible Hulk managed to bring in $55 million, and that was...
Well, wait, you just brought it up? That's not by a huge margin, dude. That's like almost the same.
Yeah, it's not a huge margin, but it's still embarrassing. And that movie came out 15 years ago. So if the Marvels had the same amount of people coming to watch this movie as The Incredible Hulk, the Marvels would probably had a better box office opening, since I'm adjusting for inflation here. Not by a lot, but probably better than 47 million.
Yes, it's less, but it's probably going to track and make the similar amount to Incredible Hulk. Maybe it can surpass it with the actors actually now going out and being able to promote it. I mean, with everything going on, with dude, the strike hurt movie theaters. Like, the strike happened and you saw stuff like Barbie and Oppenheimer really spike up, and those came out almost as soon as the actors strike started. But then, after that, it's like movie theaters fucking died.
No one cared about the strike, okay? You want to know how I know that? Because Five Nights at Freddy's made money back on a $40 million budget. So no, it wasn't the writers or actors strike. It was the fact that after Oppenheimer and Barbie, no one was interested in crappy movies. That's it. No one wanted to watch them.
That was 15 years ago. Oh my goodness, who could possibly have predicted this? Well, everyone as it turns out.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Everyone knew it was gonna flop, man. Even Forbes covered it. Chaos will then get upset that Drinker brought this up, and tries to use a counterclaim from 3 YouTube videos from the first Captain Marvel. Only he's comparing 3 YouTubers, 2 of which I've never heard of before, to Critical Drinkers group. The problem is, I don't think people in Critical Drinkers group said the first Captain Marvel movie was gonna flop.
Marvel preparing damage control for Captain Marvel flop, and that is fucking Tim Pool right there. He is not a no one.
And you bring up Tim Pool, who doesn't even have the best entertainment opinions. He doesn't even look into the facts like Critical Drinker will do.
Like, when you guys literally say everything's going to flop, yeah, and then, one thing does flop, and you go, haha, you see, we were always right. It's it doesn't really mean anything. How many times have you guys said Kathleen Kennedy's been fired? I would love to know the actual number to that.
Yep, same points Critical Drinkers made. And you know who else made that point?
Jones and the box office disaster, Indiana Jones and the doom of Lucasfilm, Indiana Jones and the KK's finally gone, right? Yeah, I'm sure we'll be making videos and talking about Indiana Jones a lot. And
We're not so different, you and I.
No matter how you try to spin it, the movie has been an unmitigated disaster, and now that it's impossible to lie their way out of that fact, the focus has shifted instead on finding a politically acceptable explanation that allows the studio to save face.
I would love to hear what your explanation is, Critical Drinker.
In order to be smug, you have to be smart. Just saying.
It wasn't a bad movie, you see. The real problem was the actors' strike preventing the stars from promoting it. Because
Yeah, that hurt it. That is a legitimate reason, Dinker.
You know, Rings of Power and Velma had actors talking about their projects, and that probably did more damage to them than helped them. Remember how much promotion 2016 Ghostbusters got, and it still lost money? Just because an actor can talk about something does not mean it will be an automatic win.
truly, whenever Brie Larson opens her mouth to talk about Captain Marvel, she's an instant hit with audiences.
So she is fine with audiences. She is not good with dipshits like you who take every single fucking moment and put it under a fucking microscope. Like, she essentially is a human being.
She's a human!
And she has human being moments like everybody else. Except she's put under a fucking microscope by you guys, and it's obnoxious.
Welcome to the world of acting. Whatever you say will be put under a microscope, and if you say the wrong thing, you'll most likely get made fun of.
Tom Cruise over here?
No, I'll be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
Well, you know.
And if there's one thing
Oh, how dare she assert herself. What a fucking bitch. No, seriously, guys, what is this? Move on.
You can be assertive without being a jerk. There are plenty of people who are assertive without being an ass to everyone. Look how unpleasant Hemsworth and Don Cheadle look. I don't think they're thinking she's being assertive. Rather, she's being a brat. I know I wouldn't want to be sitting next to someone blowing smoke up their own ass while being a douche. It's not like you're an MMA fighter getting ready for your next fight. These are your co-stars. You're working with them, so you should probably be nice to them. That's of course if you want to be liked easier.
we can all agree on, it's that scripted, corporate-approved puff-piece interviews on late-night talk shows are where every thinking man goes to form their opinions about the latest film releases. Or how about superhero?
Don't fucking watch it. Like, I swear to God, you guys, like, I don't watch that shit, and you guys are, like, addicted to it. And you're like, oh, this stuff's so bad. Let me show you the 200 fucking Brie Larson interviews I saw of her talking about, like, whatever movie she's promoting. It's like, why? Why would you watch that? That's dull.
Well, isn't that their job? Isn't that how people decide if they want to watch something based on what a person says who's in the project? If someone says something so stupid, is it bad to make fun of it? Last time I checked, that's how we got some of the funniest clips to put in videos. And what Drinker's doing is essentially what you're doing. Watching something they don't like so they can either A, make fun of it, or B, debunk it. The only difference is Drinker is actually doing a far better job than what you're doing.
But you do it, and then you complain about it, and it's like, don't fucking watch it, dude. What, you think there's like an artistry to, like, you know, interviews and shit? Like, it's kind of like an ad. Like, you might get some funny moments, but it's kind of just an ad, guys. You know that, right?
Yes, an ad to decide either if you want to watch something or not. And if someone's being an ass for no reason, why should I even care about their film or TV show?
Hero fatigue. That's a reliable excuse that can get conveniently wheeled out whenever a film flops. Marvel have just been putting out too many hits in recent years.
So let's talk about Drinker's video here for a minute. He briefly talks about superhero fatigue, and I want to make a point here. There have been times where people have been kind of tired of superhero movies due to the fact it might not have someone that is widely liked by the majority of audiences or even known about. But once there's a decent movie with someone people care about or it has gotten good word of mouth, people will go and see it. I know Drinker knows this, but if he would have made this point clearer in the video, I think it would have been easier to understand. Marvel executives were also somewhat smart during the early phases when it came to the budget and how much money projects would get depending on the film. Yeah, there is an argument to not shove out too many projects, otherwise at least one or two of the films are going to flop and the other films that are considered more important in the franchise are going to be watched instead. That's usually the case for the Ant-Man movies. They don't make as much money, so they don't usually get a huge budget, for the most part. However, something that gets pointed out by Drinker and friends is that people are starting to notice that the quality of these films are getting worse and worse, whether it's the writing, characters, visuals, and even no interesting purpose to watch these films, and it's becoming a pattern, then people won't care. I'm not just talking about comic book fans being tired. I'm also talking about the average moviegoer who just don't love Marvel movies anymore. The problem is, though, if they do start releasing less and less movies, but they're still going to run these projects the same way they've always been doing it, then what's the point? People are still writing these movies as they are being filmed, and it leads to poor scripts. So it's not a question of how many films are going to be released, although that can be a factor, but how engaging are the stories? Something that Chaos does not understand here.
You read that Variety article, you did a video on it, right, Will Jordan? So that was actually one of the points brought up in that like the Disney heads were like, we want Marvel content nonstop. If there's a movie, we want a Marvel TV show every week in between all the movies, leading up to the movies. And now they're finally slowing it down because Kevin Feige was overworked and it was just too much. That was one of the points in the Variety article, that like one of the things that need to turn ship around is like just do less stuff, which they announced before that Variety article. They're doing less stuff because it's just too fucking much. It's getting oversaturated.
He thinks if they start releasing less and less with each year, that they might get more money. And while that can work in theory, they also need to change a lot more if they want to make good movies and good shows again. And then that's probably when they'll start making money again.
And then, of course, there's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for your shitty movie, sexism and misogyny.
Well, fun fact, Will Jordan. Did you know sexism and misogyny exist and are real things?
Yes, of course we know sexism and misogyny are real things, but unlike you guys who think that's a wide majority of audiences, we know that's not the reason why a wide majority of people dislike a show or a movie with a female lead. It mostly has to do with how these female characters are written. Chaos will then go to a tweet from one of Drinker's friends, Chris Gore, and call him a sexist for what he tweeted about the Marvels and what Marvel has been doing to their brand in general.
I know you guys have a tendency to watch my shit, so like you might actually watch it. So I'm going to bring up a tweet, and I just want you to like think to yourself, like, what is the point of this? Chris fucking Gore tries to sell himself as like some sort of serious critic and then just says this chud shit. I'm getting to a point where I despise this fucking piece of shit. But anyways, turning Marvel Star Wars into girl brands will prove to be one of the costliest decisions in the entertainment industry.
Here's the thing. If you actually understand what he said in that tweet, he's making a good point. Marvel, and to a lesser extent comic book movies, are things mostly interesting to boys. That's the target audience. That does not mean girls can't like them too, it just means more often superhero types of media really only appeal to boys. Because surprise, surprise, boys and girls are different, so their interests will be different. So what Chris is saying is that it wasn't the best idea to cut off your main audience. But Chaos doesn't understand his point and thinks that Chris's problem is having girls in general.
There have always been prominent women character in comic books. There have always been women leading their own titles in comic books. I don't know if you've heard of a little character called, fucking Wonder Woman, one of the most iconic comic book characters of all fucking time.
Yeah, they've heard of Wonder Woman. They also heard about Black Widow, the OG Miss Marvel, and even She-Hulk. You know why they know about them? Because they were written in a way so boys can enjoy them too. Why do you think Sarah Connor and Ripley are loved by boys? Just because a woman is in a brand made for boys does not mean it will automatically turn into a girl brand. It's only when they start doing things that only really appeal to girls is when it becomes a girl brand, and that will leave the boy-dominated brand to lose money if they start to ignore the target audience. A majority of girls don't care about the things in superhero movies that boys love. So if Marvel wants to go back to making money, they should probably go back to their target audience. Also, he brings up the fact that a lot of movies in this phase had mostly male leads, like that's some sort of own. Specifically white men, even though race is not an argument here.
This year, three Marvel movies. Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. I know the Wasp is in the title, but like she's like the fourth most important character. The lead is Paul Rudd, easy. Guardians of the Galaxy, you could say that's more of a mixed thing, but like Chris Pratt gets first run. That's a white guy. And then last year, it was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I'm pretty sure Benedict Cumberbatch is a middle-aged white guy. Thor: Love and Thunder. Pretty sure Chris Hemsworth's a middle-aged white guy. And then we get Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Again, 2 out of 3 movies starring middle-aged white guys. Like, what the fuck about that is girl brand?
The issue is the men in these stories are usually emasculated in one way or another, and it's usually to prop up the female leads. No one wants to see their favorite character be humiliated. They want them to be seen as badasses and confident. You can still have them struggle or fall short of their own personal issues, but make it reasonable. Make it to where they will overcome this problem so we can love them even more.
Like, listen, I don't think Chris Gore is genuine. I think he is selling this, frankly, to insecure dudes. He is selling this idea to insecure dudes that, yeah, listen, the problems out there is that, like, girls are taking over your territory. There's this stuff that's sacred to young men, and girls are taking it over.
Well, they're certainly trying to do that, so...
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
It's silent.
Oh, he used Anita Sarkeesian. No one's ever referenced Anita Sarkeesian before. Dude! Anita Sarkeesian is so fucking topical.
Didn't her impact infect modern video games? Till this day? She's the reason video games are in the state that they're in, focusing on identity politics instead of gameplay and story. Oh, how that new GTA's got me worried.
It's mostly bullshit, of course, and it either ignores or misrepresents the multitude of actual reasons why this movie was practically doomed from the start. But
are you gonna get to those actual reasons? Like, actors not being able to promote it? Yeah, that seems like that probably impacted it.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? Ready!
Movie theaters not being fully recovered yet from COVID? Yeah, that probably impacted it.
COVID's not an excuse anymore. Spider-Man No Way Home and Top Gun Maverick proved that. Stop making this argument.
So strap in as I break down the real reasons why the Marvels flopped. 1, it's part of a dying brand.
So you just rephrased comic book fatigue as Marvel is fucked.
He's done with the topic of comic book fatigue and is now talking about why the MCU is failing. Get with the program, man!
You don't need me to tell you that the MCU
and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness was solid.
Solid shit.
has been in decline for several years now.
Okay, you're showing Loki and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, 2 projects that, to my understanding, have done quite well. Now, obviously, we don't have streaming numbers for Loki, so we don't know how well that did. Multiverse of Madness made almost $1 billion, dude. That's not an example of a failing brand at all.
Don't conflate one movie's financial success with the box office to both Phase 4 and 5 being successful in the MCU. The reason Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was successful in its opening week of its release was all thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home carrying its water. They showed characters you know and love from previous films like No Way Home did, and people assumed that's what it was going to be like. However, after the first week, the box office dropped and it was mainly due to word of mouth, bringing the MCU back to its original problem, losing money.
Like it knows where it's going, or that it's building towards anything, and partly because of a sharp decline in the quality of their movies. Marvel's
sharp decline in the quality of their movies. Source, please?
Well, if you pay attention to the storytelling, the CGI, world building, and general respect for the characters, Yeah, there's been a decline in quality. Just watch the movies and TV shows. And just pay attention with half a brain cell.
Because the deal with Marvel, and I've brought this up before and I'll say it again, MCU movies are not typically fantastic.
Oh, come on. The first 3 phases of movies are way better than the crap we got in phase 4 and 5, with a few exceptions, of course. At least those films try to be coherent.
The thing about MCU that makes it special isn't that it's all great works of art. The thing about the MCU that makes it special is, honestly, that hasn't shit the bed.
Oh no, it shit the bed. It shit the bed hard. Why do you think the Marvels is failing? The fact that Marvel put $250 million in the Marvels and they're not even gonna break even? Yeah, that means the MCU shit the bed.
Suffered a series of embarrassing flops and underperformers over the past 3 years, meaning there's less and less.
Shang-Chi, I thought actually did all right for like its budget, because like you can't tell me they expected Shang-Chi to be a huge movie.
Huh, okay. So why did they give Shang-Chi $2 million?
And then like you're bringing up like Loki. We don't know streaming numbers. I know it got lots of online buzz.
Funny how we know One Piece's numbers, but we don't know what Loki's is. It's almost like one's better than the other. And Disney is trying to hide that fact.
And flops and underperformers over.
Thor: Love and Thunder got like $750 million, didn't it? That's a solid box office take, dude. Like,
not after the first week.
People in the entire brand. 2, there's no big names attached to it.
Now we come to my second problem I have with Critical Drinker's video. No one knew Hemsworth, Evans, Pratt, or even Tom Holland. Sure, they knew Robert Downey Jr., Paul Rudd, and Benedict Cumberbatch, but was it the actor's star power, or was it the ability to make you care for these characters? Don't forget, Downey had some drug issues before getting the role of Iron Man. If Drinker could expand on this point, maybe I could understand, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't fully agree with this point. This argument only works for No Way Home, and again, it's because Toby and Andrew were reprising their roles. If they were playing different characters, I think the box office drop would have been different. Let's go ahead and see what else we can talk about.
Nick Fury's been gradually broken down and deconstructed in recent years to the point where the coolest character in the MCU, played by the coolest actor in Hollywood, feels more like a fat, embarrassing middle-aged dad trying to hang with his son's friends.
can you give me a source on that?
Secret Invasion.
But Samuel L. Jackson's character in Secret Invasion? Totally, like, I didn't have an issue with Nick Fury at all. I thought Samuel L. Jackson did a great performance in that. Like, especially the stuff with him and his wife. I thought that was good shit.
Yeah, but they made it canon that Nick Fury never actually did any spy missions. It was all Skrulls. So Drinker is correct. They destroyed his character even more than Captain Marvel.
That series was disappointing. The ending was very disappointing. But, like, there's good stuff, and Nick Fury is definitely not a weak part of that series. He was awesome.
Is he though?
Alright, I'm going to try and wrap this up here, so I'm going to cover some points that I think are important to talk about. So just bear with me while I talk about my last final talking points.
In reality, though, it was the most protected movie in history. The review score...
The most protected movie in history? Okay. He's going to bring up the fact that it got review bombed and how Rotten Tomatoes changed the reviews to be able to do an audience score after that and be like, oh, Rotten Tomatoes changed the rules to defend Captain Marvel. It's like, well, actually, it was more to just to actually make sure you're getting an honest review in there. But
wait, they still did it because Captain Marvel had poor reviews. Why do you think they changed the rules after Captain Marvel? It's the Amy Schumer special all over again. But hey, when Disney pays for your reviews, you'll do anything to appeal to them.
Scores were carefully managed to give it the most positive rating possible, and it was released under the most favourable market conditions that have ever existed, conveniently sandwiched between two of the biggest films in the entire MCU. When it
just like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp was sandwiched right in between them. It did do $1 billion. It didn't even come close to $1 billion. But this movie did. What does that tell you, Dinker?
Well, considering that Captain Marvel was hinted at the end of Avengers Infinity War, indicating her importance, who do you think the audience is going to prioritize? a woman set up to defeat Thanos or Ant-Man, who was not present in Infinity War. But yes, if it was not sandwiched between Infinity War and Endgame and was a prequel like Black Widow, do you think it would have made the same amount of money as it did, or would it have done differently? Just saying.
Excitement for the brand was at a fever pitch, with a marketing campaign that somehow managed to convince everyone that it was going to be an event movie on the...
Wait! So marketing sold Captain Marvel? But you were just making the argument that, like, marketing wasn't a good reason for saying the Marvels failed, because they weren't able to do all the proper marketing. But wait, marketing will help Captain Marvel, but it's not going to help the Marvels?
Well, yeah, that's actually possible. It's really up to how you market it. Captain Marvel was supposed to be important to Endgame's story. That's how they marketed the first Captain Marvel. You know how they marketed the Marvels?
What?
Also, let me double check. What did Drinker actually say?
It wasn't a bad movie, you see. The real problem was the actors' strike preventing the stars from promoting it. Because truly, whenever Brie Larson opens her mouth to talk about Captain Marvel, she's an instant hit with audiences.
Oh, that's right. He was talking about how poor Brie Larson is at promoting a film, and how actors can actually destroy your chances at making money when talking about their movie or TV shows.
Fulfillment power fantasy that starts out strong and awesome, is liked by almost everyone, wins at everything to become even stronger and more awesome, and eventually realizes that the only thing holding her back from god tier level of awesomeness is the rest of the world failing to accept how amazing she is. I mean,
Is that it? Is that it? I feel like you're simplifying it quite a bit. So, like...
Yes, that's Captain Marvel's entire character arc in the whole film. The closest you get to any form of conflict is the scene where she finds out that the Kree are actually the bad guys and the Skrulls were the victims. But after that, nothing happens. Nope, not a thing. It doesn't address the fact that she is responsible for countless innocent deaths. Nope, all is forgiven. Hell, you basically said the same thing. Some of which is what Drinker said in this video.
She spends most of her life essentially having her powers suppressed by the Kree. She found out they were lying and manipulated her, and then she stood up and she figured out that, you know, she had the true power and that she could, you know, do the good guy stuff and was more powerful than she ever even realized.
He just said that!
Which is, like, pretty standard stuff. I mean, another example of a character frequently kind of treated like this, where, like, they're kind of... Well, that's the thing, like, it's not even, like, a one-to-one, because Captain America is a character who's kind of always right, and the world's kind of wrong, and he has to kind of fix the world, and that's kind of the arc of those movies, to a degree.
Oh, don't compare Captain America to Captain Marvel. Steve Rogers actually struggled with the choices he made and to be the best he can be. He had to prove himself worthy of the title Captain America over and over and over again. Captain America did what was right, but there was a cost to his actions, no matter how heroic his actions were. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel is instantly perfect. Have you seen any of the old MCU films? How could you compare Captain America to Captain Marvel with their story arcs? Or even characterizations?
really, is it any wonder that people didn't connect with a character like that? And the thing is, she's not exactly alone either, which brings me neatly on to number 4, the M.C.U.
Oh boy, this is gonna be the rough part of the video, isn't it? For those who don't know what the M.C.U. is, here's a short synopsis of this right here. Pause and read it if you like, otherwise let's continue.
After disposing of Ike Perlmutter, who was basically the only thing keeping the MCU on track, one of Kevin Feige's stated objectives was to introduce more female characters.
Ike Perlmutter. That is a name I know.
He's just some guy that worked for Kevin Feige and doesn't work for him anymore and helped him produce films. Honestly, I don't know much about him, so I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's getting into it right there. Marvel wants to build an MCU with over 50% female superheroes. Cool! I am down for more superheroes with vaginas.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
Why would you ever phrase it like that, man? Oh my god. You could have just said more women, but why did you say it like that? That's so weird.
Of course, I mean, I guess female doesn't necessarily mean vagina. We could have a trans woman in there. I'm all for inclusion. Let's do that.
Oh. Okay, that's where we draw the line at phrasing things. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I see no problem with that. I don't... Like, Kevin Feige says he wants more female superheroes, and I'm like, cool. And you guys are like, oh my god, how dare you? And it's like, who gives a shit? Move on. Why are you so offended by more women on screen? Why is that, like, get to your sensibilities? That's the more pressing question. Not that he wants to add more female superheroes, because, yeah, there haven't been that many. Like, I guess there's, like, overall in the MCU, they've had all right women superheroes, but, like, they haven't had them in starring roles really much at all.
The problem is not with adding more women in the MCU, it's how and why. When a company tells us these kinds of announcements, it's because they're pandering, and because they are doing that, it's most likely meaning the characters are written poorly, like how they did it with Captain Marvel. And you know what? With the few female characters we have gotten, they were actually pretty well written for the most part. Black Widow has probably the most interesting backstory that most fans wanted to know more about, and guess what? She was the only lady on the Avengers team in the first movie. Her character was so interesting, we wanted to see her in her own movie. Then we got this pile of shit of a movie, ruining that potential storyline. It's not how many female characters there are, or if they have their own solo film. It's how the characters are written, and if they're written poorly, no one's gonna like them. In fact, he says it in this video that Chaos is covering, and puts it in simple terms.
Now, a smart writer could have found ways to gradually introduce cool, interesting, well-rounded female characters to complement rather than undermine the existing male heroes. You know, proving the point that both men and women are pretty awesome in their own ways, and that when they work together instead of against each other, great things can happen.
So, let's see how Chaos covers it.
In fact, he wanted more than 50% of Marvel heroes to be female. Now, a smart writer could have
Cool.
Riveting commentary.
Found ways to gradually introduce cool, interesting, well-rounded female characters to complement rather than undermine the existing male heroes.
How do they undermine?
Oh, kind of like this.
The structure is polymorphic.
Right, we had to attach each neuron non-sequentially.
Why didn't you just reprogram the synapses to work collectively?
Because we didn't think of it?
I'm sure you did your best.
I thought I lost you.
Touch. This is the one? Seriously?
Your choices were him or a tree.
Let's see who you are. And take off your disguise. And flick.
Should we help out? Eventually. Right?
Looks like a shy courgette.
Well, I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
See.
No, I'm doing this.
Okay, this is completely new territory.
You guys have outgrown your binder, cuz. Love you, Bruce, but I'm going home.
And those are the examples I didn't like. There were plenty more within the movies and TV shows you can find.
The relentless deluge of smug, generic...
Sylvie was fine, and so was Yelena. Like, you just gotta show women and say women bad?
Alright, I'm gonna show another clip from Drinker, but pay attention to what he's saying and what the visuals he's showing.
Instead, what we ended up with was a relentless deluge of smug, generic, overpowered, patronising boss bitches that the scripts were painfully eager to depict as smarter, stronger, more capable, more righteous, and more assertive than the dumb, timid, outdated imposters now wearing our favourite heroes like skin suits. They usually excelled in traditionally male-dominated fields like science, technology, aerospace, and engineering. They were often completely self-taught, and of course, they never needed help from a man.
That's what he said, but this is how Chaos is gonna interpret it.
Eric, overpowered, patronising boss bitch.
Well, She-Hulk's a really bad example because she was being a bratty bitch in that first episode. The way you guys misconstrue the first fucking episode blows my mind. She's being a fucking bitch in the first episode. She's being awful to Bruce, frankly.
Yeah, She-Hulk is awful to Bruce. But how do they address it? Remember, Stark and Strange were called out for their behavior, but She-Hulk, nah, she's fine. Funny enough, there could have been something in episode 8, but they literally rewrite it in the story of the next episode. So it's not just her being awful, but never addressing her awfulness. And sometimes they'll make excuses for her to why she's awful.
That the scripts were painfully eager to depict as smarter, stronger, more capable, more righteous, and more assertive than...
Okay. There's just one of these examples you go through, and I'm going to have to pause it.
More capable, more righteous...
So there we go. We have Wanda from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as an example of a perfect woman who is just awesome in every way, and just... She's a fucking murderer in that movie. She is insane and killing people in that movie.
Alright, let's go to the dictionary. Righteous, number 1. Of a person or conduct morally right or justifiably virtuous. And remind me again, what does Doctor Strange, the protagonist of this film, say to Wanda? You know, the woman who enslaved a whole town to live out a fantasy with a family that's not even real, and is about to take over the multiverse for said fake family?
Wanda, you are justifiably angry. You had to make terrible sacrifices.
I blew a hole through the head of the man I loved, and it meant nothing. Do not speak to me of sacrifice, Stephen Strange.
Oh, that's right, she was upset because she lost her robotic lover and can't get over it. You know, back in the old M.C.U, she accidentally killed civilians trying to stop a terrorist from killing Captain America, and was still held accountable for those deaths. But enslaving a town to live out your fantasy and now wanting to hurt a child just to steal kids that remotely resemble those fake ones? Not even a slap on the wrist. Granted, she realized she was doing the wrong thing, not because she figured out killing people was wrong, but because she saw her own kids getting scared of her, and realized maybe, you know what, I'm doing the wrong thing. Brilliant writing.
So this idea that she's an example of the M.C.U. just being perfect women all over the place. No, you're insane. You're clearly, this destroys your whole thing, because this is clearly just you trying to sell your fucking narrative to your fucking fans.
No, it's still a good example of the M.C.U. because she is described as the most powerful in both the films.
Witch is a being of unfathomable magic. She can rewrite reality as she chooses, and is prophesized to either rule or annihilate the cosmos.
And by Marvel executives.
So, as of Endgame, in your opinion, who would be the strongest Marvel hero?
As of Endgame?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, if you look at Endgame, Wanda Maximoff was going to kill Thanos.
Yeah.
If he hadn't desperately, that's as scared as I've ever seen Thanos. And if he hadn't said, decimate my entire team to get her off of me, I think she would have done it.
Just because she is not the bad guy doesn't mean that she's not part of the M.C.U. It also doesn't help she gets away for what she did in both WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2. John Walker got more hate killing a terrorist in a public view than Wanda has gotten for what she did in Westview.
And frankly, you're abusing your fans when you do that shit. You are. You are just, feeding them lies and bullshit.
And this is what I dislike about Organized Chaos. He will make the most incendiary claims towards a person and even their intentions for their followers. You can dislike someone, but if you are planning on debunking them, you better have facts to prove it. Otherwise, you'll look like a fool. And so far, you haven't proved much against Drinker other than 2 things, at best. The rest of the video is the same, with Chaos saying dumb things to try and counter Drinker.
Are often completely self-taught, and of course, they never...
Yeah, because they could never do that?
Or him not knowing what happened in the MCU films that Drinker is talking about.
If a movie or TV show happened to have a male lead, you could basically guarantee there would be at least 2 or 3 of these strong female supporting characters hovering around him, making fun of his grandiose posturing and consistently outperforming him in every possible way.
Okay. So earlier this year, we had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I don't really recall them really making fun of Scott.
I didn't know that. Why didn't you call me?
Because I knew you'd be like this.
I would have just broken you out with ants.
All right, you know what? Family meeting. Could we have a family meeting?
Isn't that what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, about this, about everybody being so fine with this. You want to help. I get it. I do, Cassie. I really do. But I don't want you wasting your life.
At least I'm still trying to do something with mine.
I literally saved the world.
Oh, did you? Well, yeah, you never mentioned that before. Everybody's got Save the World.
How is that for you, Scott? You should write a book about it.
Ha ha. Hilarious. Yeah, you're welcome for all not being dust.
And what do you do now? Sign books? Aren't you the guy who broke into VistaCorp? Aren't you the guy who flew all the way to Germany just to fight Captain America at the airport? People still need help, Dad. At least we're trying to do something that matters.
So yeah, I don't got much else to say about Organized Chaos's video. If you want to watch his video and get all of his arguments, go right ahead. Just don't say anything nasty to him. Not saying you will, but I just feel like I need to say that. Well, thanks for watching, and thanks for everyone who got my last video to 1,000 views. I really appreciate you guys. It makes me want to do this even more, so with that being said, I'm gonna head off to work on some more stuff, so farewell until my next video.